Let me introduce you to our first guest tonight. Connie Jones knew and loved God, but to her, God was rules, performance, and judgment. I know that sounds familiar to a lot of people that are watching. At the age of 21, Connie was treated for an eating disorder, learned her true identity, learned about God's love and grace and her relationship with Him, and at age 27, had a broken engagement, moved to Peachtree City, here in the Atlanta area, new job, and all alone, had to figure out her purpose in life and how she was going to make it. And the good news is she has figured it out. She's doing a great job. And we're going to talk about her story and what God is doing currently in her life and what God has done. Would you welcome to Atlanta Live, Connie Jones. Connie, God bless you.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Privilege.
Yes.
Well, it's an honor to have you here tonight, and you're here from the Atlanta area, Peachtree City, and just a powerful story, and you're doing a great work now, and we're going to get to that, but kind of just start wherever you want to start, and just tell us kind of your story and what God's done in your life.
Well, it's interesting that I'm here telling my story because I was that girl who didn't want her story.
Wow.
And, you know, I love that Brene Brown quote that you either walk inside your story or you stand outside of your story and you hustle for your worthiness, and that was me. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, and my dad was a football coach, and so in a small town in Georgia, when your dad's the football coach and Ron's a teacher, and it was me and my brother, and we my dad was kind of God in our community, and we were in church every time the doors were open, and you know, we did everything right.
Yeah.
We were good people, had good hearts, but it was really about rules. It was about right and wrong. It was about do this and don't do this, and this is who you are. What you do is who you are. And, you know, it was never enough. The performance, the achievement trap is, there's no bondage, you know, that oftentimes I had everything. I had everything. I was the all-American girl who had a loving family, who had, you know, had my Christianity, had my relationship with God. I was valedictorian, homecoming queen, 3-sport athlete, had a college scholarship in sports, and I don't say that to brag. I say that because that is not what matters, but through all of it, I was lost. And so I didn't know who I was. I was what I did, not who I am. And so, you know, it's that performance trap is about the loneliest place that I can imagine. I almost even in my worst times of pain, wished that I had been beaten, wished that I had had a story that was awful because of because you don't feel like you have a reason to be upset or to hurt when you've got everything. But when you're hurting because you're lost and you don't know who you are and you're not seen in the world other than what you can offer and what you accomplish, it's a very painful existence.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and so do you think some of that we talked about, what you're talking about, led you into the eating disorder and
oh yes, oh absolutely, because I had to perform. I had to find the picture of perfection and become that. And so, you know, it was wrapped up in my family and athletics and fitness and academics, and so I had to be the big pic, you know, the full picture. And like I said, it was just never enough.
Yeah.
You know, we as Christians face spiritual warfare. We have an enemy of our soul, Satan, who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Ephesians 6 talks about the fact that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against these spiritual forces that come against us. And I taught last night, and as you're telling your testimony, there's a couple of things that come to my mind. I listed and discussed 7 tactics of spiritual warfare. One of those is distraction, and the other one is dissatisfaction. You compare yourself to others, and you know, I think one leads to the other. All of those things that I talked about last night, I think they're all connected. It starts with distraction.
Yes.
The enemy distracts us from our purpose because there are good things. You made reference to this. You were doing the good things. You were a good person. But there's good things and there's God things.
Absolutely.
And sometimes in our effort to be good, we forget God. And we can have all of the the form and the routine and the trappings of religion, but not really have relationship with God, which gives us peace and joy and security in who we are.
No doubt.
And so you've kind of talked about what led you into that, but then tell us the rest of the story. Where did that take you?
Well, and it's funny because, and I talk about distraction a lot actually in my practice, and I'll explain that with my clients. Sure. I talk a lot about, it's all about really understanding your true identity and then experiencing God, not just knowing him, experiencing him and not knowing about him, but really knowing him. And I didn't, I knew about him and had never really experienced him. But Satan does. He wants us to settle for counterfeit. And, and as long as he can convince us that settling for counterfeit is then we will fall into that trap and we'll stay there in distraction. Yeah. And so that's where I was. So, through the struggle, the eating disorder, through college, I actually had to leave school, lost my scholarship. And, it was a struggle and for several years, and did finish school, and then was engaged and had a broken engagement, which was very painful. And, he was the perfect picture. He fit the picture, but my heart wasn't happy, and I had not found me, and really didn't feel like I was stepping into my purpose. That wasn't everything for me. Marriage wasn't everything for me. I knew there was more, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I do. And so over the years of struggle, got in counseling, and very intensive counseling for a lot of years, and ended up realizing that that's where I was being called, that was the calling on my life, is to help others heal. I realized that, I have a gift in spite of me. And so now 12 years later, here I am. I have a practice in Peachtree City where we help people live in fullness and freedom. And it's really all about understanding your true identity and walking in that, so that we can receive our inheritance.
Right.
And that's so good. It's really, God's all about redemption and restoration.
And we talk about the why, understanding the why.
The why.
Yeah. I mean,
so important.
I think it was Rita that shared that quote, and we'll talk about that a moment ago. I just read that. The two greatest days in your life are the day you were born and the day you discovered why.
Yes.
That's powerful.
It is powerful.
Because, everyone knows their birthday. I had a birthday last Saturday. So everybody, if I ask you when you were born, anybody can tell you that. They know when they were born. But what if you ask the question, why were you born? Yeah. Very few people identify that. Mm-hmm. And that's why that they search and they struggle to find their way through life, because they don't understand, why am I here? Why did God wake me up this morning? We're not promised today.
Right.
But God brought you through all of the things he brought you through. And one of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28, knowing this, that all things work together for the good to those who, number one, love the Lord, secondly, are the called according to his purpose. And it's, in my mind, I see a puzzle. I share this very often, but I see a puzzle where you have all these different pieces.
Yeah.
And it takes every piece of that puzzle to complete the picture. And, when God said all things work together, doesn't mean that he brings those things in our life, but we can use those things that we walk through to build our lives and through those experiences, because now you're using your testimony, your story of what you went through to encourage others. Tell us maybe a couple of those stories of how God's really used your business and what you're doing to help people become holistically well.
Yeah.
Tell me a couple stories of how your story has helped them.
Yeah, well, and now there are 6 of us in our practice, and God has grown it, and there's always healing to do. And so right now I am more doing, my practice has transitioned a little bit, my personal practice. I actually work with more business people, entrepreneurs, executives, leaders of organizations, which has been really rewarding. And so what typically happens is they come to me with problems in their marriage, or they have achieved the success, they've climbed the ladder, achieved the success, they have the home, they're making bukus of money, and everything in their life looks perfect, just like my story, and they're not happy. and they don't know who they are, and they're wondering, how am I going to go home today because I don't know that I love my wife, or vice versa, or I feel disconnected from my children, and or here I am I'm running this organization, and but I'm not happy, and it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I get to help those people find their true purpose in life and walk in their identity and find that fulfillment in the Lord that nothing in this world brings like he does.
So you're serving as a life coach.
I do now.
And really as a minister.
Yes,
that's what you're doing. You're ministering into people's lives.
Absolutely.
To help them holistically be who they need to be. And that's so important, because I think you have to approach every area of their life really to have fullness. You can't, it's like a car, it doesn't matter if you've got a good transmission if the engine's not running well.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
You have to work on each of that. Well, tell us a little bit about your contact information, how people can find you. And
I have a practice in Peachtree City, but I see people all over the nation and even internationally sometimes. But we're Peachtree City. We're Arise Counseling and Coaching, and like I said, there's 6 of us, counselors and coaches, and I still do some counseling when God puts somebody on my heart to, if there's a marriage that I just really, their situation I relate to, or a situation that I feel like he's calling me to really help heal and restore wholeness to. But and then my email address is ConnieJ@arisecounselingandcoaching.com, and phone number is 770-862-6088.
All right.
And so we would love to help anybody that wants to live that life of freedom and fullness that God promises
good.
us.
Well, thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing that, because I believe someone that's watching tonight is strengthened and encouraged by that. That's the reason sometimes we go through what we go through and come out of that, is so we can pass that along. And if God has brought you through something, share it. Share what God has done. We were talking before the program how important that is to celebrate what God has done in your life, because there are people out there who are going through the same thing, and they just need to know you can win. You can come through this with victory. And Connie, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming and being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful.